Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm your host, Catherine Taylor. Now, my guest today resides in Victoria, British Columbia, and writing has always been a part of her life, from journals she kept as a young girl to working in journalism, public relations, education, and the arts. So please join me as I welcome Barbara Black to Let's Get Writing. Hello, Barbara. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, Catherine. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And we're covering coast to coast. Here you are
Yeah,
on the island off the coast of Vancouver or BC, and
yeah.
here I am on an island, Newfoundland, right on the other end of the country.
It's a
So,
big
folks,
country.
it's a big country, and thankfully for technology, we can do this. And I'm just thrilled to talk to you.
Oh, good.
And yeah, and how this came about is I was working on my Instagram and researching different things, and flash fiction came up. And I started to look at that, and I got hooked up on, I think it was over in Edinburgh, a competition. And I went in to look at it, and I'm looking at the names of people who are shortlisted. And you came up, and I said, "She's from Canada. I have to check this out." And then I went on your site, and then the next thing you know, I'm like, "Barbara, you must come on Let's Get Writing." And you must tell us all about what you're doing in your writing career. Um, but first of all, I'd love you just tell people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into a bit on flash fiction, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there like me who are wondering, what is that?
That is that thing. Okay, well, you already know that I live in Victoria, which is on way, way over on the west coast of Canada. And I'm a writer. I write flash fiction. I have a short story collection out called Music from a Strange Planet. I also write poetry. That's the hardest thing for me to write, but I like doing that too. I'm an avid gardener. I have a backyard that is my little like moving work of art, is what I call it, because it's alive. So I can't totally control it, but I just adore gardening and pollinators. Other things I like to do, I like to sing, and not lately, I like to motorcycle. It snowed everywhere else except in Victoria today. Um, but
Wow.
motorcycling is really fun. I took it up late in life, and I just love doing it. It's
I could
so
talk to you about that for sure, because I have a passion for it as well.
oh, good.
But I have a spider, but I'm not. I'm more into the sports cars right now. I think it's just easier, but we'll do something on motorcycles
Hmm.
sometime. And please tell me you're not working in your garden then yet. It's still too cold out there.
I'd like to be. In years past, before the climate
Yeah.
kind of changed, I do remember sitting end of February in the garden
Mm.
with a cup of coffee on a sunny day. But right now it's struggling because we had some really cold, for us, cold weather, which was like below zero, and things came out, hellebores, and they're like little limp, sad things right now.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. We are in a deep freeze right now, so I'm
Yeah.
very glad to hear that you're not gardening. But let's get back to what you do, because you're wonderful with words, and I've been reading so much of your work and really inspired, because I have never worked with such short forms of fiction. You specialize in short stories and flash fiction. Please, can you tell us a little more about flash fiction and how you ended up doing that?
Okay. That is a good question about how I ended up doing it. That I'm not even sure. I'll, I I'm going to get to that
Get to
after I
that.
tell you
Tell
what
us what it
flash
is.
fiction is. Well, flash fiction is a short fiction genre. There's also nonfiction flash as well. And different people, different journals, different contests have different definitions of how long it should be and what it should be. So I'll give you the two sort of rivaling definitions. It's Generally from 300 words up to 1,000 or 1,500 words. Some people say it's 500 to 1,000. It's so that it gives you a general idea. It's very short, and it used to be called sudden fiction at some point, which I like because it gives you the idea if you are suddenly dropped into a story. There's no
Mhm.
ambling, preamble thing to get into it. You have, this much space, and so you have to jump right into it. So that's one particular feature. It's very condensed language, strong imagery, and often the language has an internal rhythm to it. Mine tends to do that quite a lot. Can be almost poetic. Um, Writers use a lot of rhetorical devices as well, like extended metaphor or negations or repetitions, hyperbole. Um, and here's where it gets controversial. Not only how long is flash fiction, but
Mhm.
what are the rules? Well, some journals, uh, literary journals, want there to be a plot, and they want there to be a change, or like a story structure. They want there to be a story arc. And then other factions, including journals, want it to be much more open than that. They don't like the rules. They're
Mhm.
the mavericks and the inventors, and I'm one of them too. And they want to keep the target wide for creating flash fiction. And so for my take on that would be that I think flash is kind of like a slippery beast of experimentation. It's an opportunity to try lots of forms, lots of voices. You can get into magic realism, which a lot of them do, and a lot of mine do. Maybe not quite surreal, because that's when there's not too much reality left. But some of
Mhm.
them really push the envelope.
Well, you know what it reminded me of, and as I was reading some of the things, some of the surrealists even in art, because I know you have worked with visual aspects of
Hmm.
your fiction as well, and we want to show that to people. But you get the sense of you are really dropping into a story, and everything is just not quite right. Like everything is just there's just a little something off. That's what I felt at times when I was reading it. That
Yeah.
is this person sane? Are they? Is this in their imagination, and and then trying to take those ideas, and when you're used to reading books like I mostly read books, to pick
Hmm.
up something like this was very intriguing to me. And I looked at your use of words, and how you structured it, like you say, sometimes a bit of repetition, or it really intrigued me. I don't know that I could ever write that, but I thought I have to talk to someone who does. What's behind those eyes, and what's in your what's in your mind as you're doing
Right.
this? And I know you were gonna. I did ask you, how did you get involved with it?
Right.
I know you did a collection of short stories. I'm just going to pop this up on the screen. So that's your collection of short stories
Mhm.
there. And then we also have the book that's coming out this year, Little
Mhm.
Fortified Stories. So tell a little bit about how you moved from short stories into Little Fortified Stories, which are they not flash fiction mainly in there?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
there's a variety of things. Some of them are monologues, and some of them are almost bordering on a prose poem, which has lots of description and isn't not so story based. It's maybe more lyrical. So there's a combination. Most of them I would call them flash fiction. So actually, I started the flash fictions, which I wasn't calling them that, first before I started
Oh.
Music from a Strange Planet, because how it all started was I was in Lisbon for a writing conference, the Disquiet International Writing Conference, and I was doing short forms. And I went to the port center. They call it a port museum, but it's not really a museum. It's got all the ports from all over Portugal, white and red, and you can taste them. What you have to pay, but so I went there, and I had this beautiful port, and without intending to do anything, just sip it. I got a story came into my head based on the quality of that particular port. And I had my little writing book with me, and I wrote it down. And I liked this idea so much that I kept doing them. And
Mhm.
when I came home from Portugal, I continued this and I added other spirits. So I now have gin and scotch and whiskey. And at some point, I stopped doing it, and I've added other categories to my story, to my manuscript now that aren't alcoholic spirit related. But
Sobriety was in
that's
there, I
how
think.
I started. And then something happened. I think I just started writing short stories, and then that whole collection became my focus and got published, and by Caitlin Press, who is also now wants to publish my flash fiction manuscript. So I'm now going back to flash, actually.
After.
So coming back to it and doing new ones, and there's always something new, like a prompt that you've never tried or a form that you've never tried.
Mhm.
Like doing something all in questions or doing lists or things like that. So I'm trying to try some different approaches in
Well,
my.
what I love is the fact that when you say you're trying some different approaches, it seems to me you do that a lot. And I'm thinking back to those days, growing up, and maybe kids out there who are in English class thinking like this is just so boring. We're here to show you today that it does not have to be boring at all. The
Exactly.
parameters can be right. The parameters can be so broad. And this is what excites me about what you're doing, and really the message that I want to share with people is that this is incredible. Open your mind to how you can work with words. And Barbara, people don't know this, but I know this. You are trained to sing opera, you play the piano, you work a lot writing, maybe as a lyricist, there's another word I think you use,
Oh,
but
librettist. Yeah. I've done one libretto is always for something that has drama, like a performance to it.
in
So
it,
I've done that,
yeah.
and I've done song cycle texts. I love collaborating. I love collaboration. Um,
You do, and I think you love teaching yourself things as well.
yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh, you've got me. You've got me.
I do. I read everything that you sent me, and I was like, "This is incredible." But this is what I want to share with people: that you have taken writing to so many different dimensions by using the arts, so many of the arts in your writing. And if we could, I'm just going to bring up a couple of your things that you shared with me, and maybe you can talk about this a bit. Um, So, folks, we're going to blow your minds on what writing can be today. We're just going to really get to open your mind. Barbara, tell us a bit about this, the name of this piece we're going to see.
Okay.
And
I have started to take up collage when I opened an Instagram account because someone said I should have one. And I thought, well, I can't do writing on that. It's a visual social media that's very visual. So I always wanted to learn how to do collages. So I thought, oh, I'll collage my words. So this is an example of where I started with one of my recent collages, a model's face, and how I think I actually collaged on top of this image, which I rarely do, but I think I did in
mhm,
this case. And the collage, here it is. I put the title of the collage and of the flash fiction it's based on is As If the Outline of a Country Had Appeared on My Face. And so I adapted that face by putting it, actually, that is an old aviation map that was in our basement, and it's of the area around Winnipeg, in case you want to know. And so I really wanted to be quite literal in how I collaged that particular story, which started as a poem as well. And I tried to keep it very simple because it's a small piece. And that's, yeah.
so, where is this piece now? Is this something that you keep on the wall in your studio, or do you sell these, or
That's a good
where do they
question.
go?
It's in an envelope
Okay.
because I don't know why I did it this way, but because when I was learning, I just didn't want to go all the way through and do the gluing down. Sometimes pieces are glued because if you don't do that and you
Mhm.
hit it, it all gets all messed up. But what I do is I call them ephemeral. I collage them and then I take all the pieces off and I put it in an envelope and I label it. So it still exists. I
Ah,
could do it or redo it, but it's not glued down.
oh,
I'm not really
interesting.
sure
Now,
why I did it that way, but I did. So
a part of your creative process. Let's have a look at another one. We'll just bring this one up in the stream, and I'm not sure if I have the right name for this one. Is this the
um,
Jagger Family
the
Theater?
Jaeger Family Theater.
Jaeger, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this is
Okay,
another
so
one.
I do. Yeah.
You were right. My most recent one, and I don't always use a model, but I thought it made more sense for people to see, sort of the beginnings of something and how it ends up. And the story this is based on is one of my fabricated ancestry stories because I don't have enough facts of my family history, so I have to kind of, stretch them out into mythological things. So I'm distracted because I can hear rain or sleet hitting my window right now.
I'm
And
so
snow.
glad, and it's shining here. People can see behind me in Newfoundland. We're having a blissfully beautiful
Oh,
day,
that's
cold.
nice.
So you can have the rain.
Okay, thank you. We need it. Okay, so here's this image. I knew I wanted to have a girl, because in the story there's a girl who is celebrating being part of the Jaeger family and is kind of dressed as a Jaeger bird, which there is such a thing. It has a very long tail, which is why I was
Oh,
interested in that photo. And this was in a fashion magazine I had, and I loved the posture, but I flipped her to the other direction because I wanted it to be, that way. And I really didn't use any much in the image. I used, I think, someone else's arms, and I used one little part of her skirt in the end result. And so this is the in progress one. You can see all my bits up there, like pieces of hair I cut out of, Victoria's Secret catalog, and and there's a lot of hair in there, long.
a lot, a lot.
Um, Once I got the figure, I just the whole thing comes together. That's usually what happens. You get one element,
Hmm.
nail it, and then suddenly it pulls together. So here she is. I was going to do like a Jaeger tail or something, but it didn't work. I just did the girl with sort of wings and feathers on her outfit. Um,
There we go.
and there you have it. That's
So it's so very interesting to see take things that you're thinking and writing and put it this way. It's something kind of like doing a storyboard when certain projects
yeah.
I work on that we have to move along and we have scenes or segments. I'm
Mhm.
working off a storyboard, but this is much prettier.
And in this one, I chose not to put words on. I
Yes.
usually do have words, but this one I went, I don't think there's any space for words. It's going to be too cluttered. So I let it be what it was.
But we are going to hear some words, and this next one that we're going to share, you're actually going to also share the story with us. So I'm going to bring this up. This is you. I have the part two, but you can tell me when you want me to put that up.
Okay.
And this one's called Herring Radio.
This one's,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, tell us a bit about this.
Well, it's the same section in my manuscript as the previous one we just looked at. It's called Spirits of the Ancestors. And as I said, sometimes I fabricate. So I stretch some of the facts because there aren't enough facts and make a story out of it. And in this case, it's about a fisherman. It's a take on my grandfather and grandmother who were Swedish on the maternal side and how they met. Um, and my grandfather
Mhm.
actually was not a fisherman, and he was a carpenter. But so I wanted a vintage fisherman kind of photo. And I went through tons and tons. And this one came up because I liked the fellow on the left. So what I
Mhm.
did is I had to redo his face and I redid the colors. I wanted color, so I had redid his clothing. And I took out the other fisherman and put, you'll see when you switch it up. Um,
Would you like me to switch it now?
yeah,
I
I
want to.
put an ocean
Yeah.
there
Okay.
instead of
There
a
we go.
mountain. And this made it much more comical. And that radio that you see down on the floor is
Uh-huh.
from a way larger photo I took of my dad's radio that was in the basement, that he had. It still worked too. So that's
Very.
actually a family heirloom thing that I put in there. Do you want me to read the story?
Yes, yes. Let's hear
Okay.
the story.
You'll
And
understand the whoops, I dropped it.
oops,
You'll
that's
understand
okay.
what the woman is doing in there when I read you the story. Okay.
I'm gonna try and change this set a little bit and see where it goes. I want you up in the. I want you up in the.
There.
Now I'll never be able to get it. I kind of wanted you in the center, but there's some. Well, we'll live with this. You
Okay.
take it from here.
Okay. It's called Herring Radio, and there really is such a thing as Herring Radio. It's where they announce where the herring is running um, at that moment. So, Herring Radio. He in his harbor hut, waves licking the floorboards, had one ear cocked to the herring news, the other ear to the future, where waves slapped the shore of an unknown land. The man, untrusting of dialogue, never spoke to women, only sheep. All women will come to us out of our need, he said. And she one day stepped right out of the coffee can, full grown and arms that could snap his spine, eyes shining and milky like oysters. This is how he told it. This is how it was. She was descended from a herring down Marstrand way. Legend came not easily in that granitic land. A large, willful girl with silvery eyes, magnetism that pulled like North Sea tides. Sinewy men dreamed of her net hauling arms plunged deep into carcasses, pulling out a heart, theirs. She'd lived up there long before him, eating dried flounder and dulse, years measured in skeins of wool carded from sheep that strayed her way, spun to the falling of month-long snows, knitted into men, which she threw into the sea. Except that one, that was him. She knitted with him two little ones, a girl with a twitter like a kittiwake, and a boy with big ears who could hammer in a nail. They ran on the heath with windmilling arms, screaming into the day's raw wind. There you go.
There it goes.
So two
And
people.
again, go ahead, Barbara,
Oh, those
please.
two people at the end. Well, one is my mother, and the other one is her brother.
Is your brother.
Yeah.
And you know the again the imagery that you bring in and just kind of drop us right in there. But it's wonderful. So folks, that's a little taste of flash fiction, and hopefully we've whetted your appetite for more. I'm just going to try and go back to our traditional screen. Here we go.
Here we are.
And I'm going to take away this image and back to you, Barbara. Um, so how I speak to so many writers, but how has writing transformed your life? I mean, what has it meant to you to work in this area? It's a big question, I
It
know.
is. Transformed my life. I sit in front of a
Yeah.
screen a lot more. I think what's been great is to meet other writers. My book of short stories came out during the pandemic, so I didn't meet a lot of writers physically, but I met a lot of them virtually. And just to know that there's people out there who have the same ambitions as you and but the same struggles too. And there's very supportive people out there. And I like to support other writers too. And I have people who are very supportive of me.
Mhm.
And discovering readers who, I'm nothing without readers, people reading my work. And they are just so amazing how people, when my book came out and they read my book, they were messaging me and emailing me and saying, I loved this story, because just to hear feedback like that it's just worth so much. So
Mhm.
I really enjoy that side of it too. Just Really love that part because you're always surprised, like, oh, that person actually liked a story. I wouldn't have thought they would have liked that story. Um, yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
And as writers, who are we without readers? Really and truly, you bring that
That's
up.
right. It's
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
People to read the books and people to share that feedback means so much, and they can do that with you. This is your website that I've shared here, Barbara Black, but you're also active on Instagram and I think it's Twitter,
I do a
and
little bit of Twitter.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
and Facebook.
And I have a Facebook writer page as well. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll have all that for people who do see the show. There's many different platforms, but on my YouTube channel at Catherine Taylor TV, all the links will be there to your social handles, and
Thank
we
you.
make it easy for people to go in and find you and comment.
Yeah.
One last thing I'm going to bring up, just before we wrap, we just have a minute, but part of a competition, shortlisted for a flash fiction competition. And that's where this all began. That's where I found you. And yeah, so how does it feel to be reaching out to the world doing competitions? Is it something you do a lot?
I do like to do it. I like to go beyond Canada sometimes and to the US or even beyond the US and try international contests. It's great that places do have things open to internationally to writers. And I like it because it gives me more exposure, of course, because then
Mhm.
people may look me up who wouldn't have come across me otherwise. But I also like it for the connections. You never know who I may befriend, or who may befriend me in Scotland. Or I've entered the Bath Flash Fiction Contest as well. That's in the UK, in Bath. It's not to do with baths, and in their anthology. And who knows where a connection may occur there as well. And so I just
Here we
yeah, I
are.
enjoy
And
doing it.
who knows? This is how we connected and how we're connecting with the people watching this show today. So thank you so much, Barbara, for being a guest on Let's Get Writing. And thank you to everyone for following the show and liking and sharing. And I hope we can bring you stimulating content every time. But for now, give some thought to flash fiction. Thank you and have a great day, Barbara.